Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's going on, everyone? And if you're a Mets fan, you might want to sit down for this one. Actually, scratch that. You're probably already sitting down because you've been beaten into submission by this organization over the last few months. Before we get into the absolute bombshell that Eric Chavez just dropped on the Mets front office, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because this is the kind of content that the Mets PR team does not want you talking about. And if you stick around until the end, I'm going to tell you exactly why David Stearns' days in New York might be numbered. So Eric Chavez, former Mets bench coach, just left the organization to join the Rockies. And now that he's out, now that he doesn't have to worry about burning bridges or protecting relationships, he's starting to let things slip. And what he's revealing about David Stearns in this front office is absolutely damning. Now, Chavez is being careful with his words because that's how baseball works. You don't directly call out people by name if you want to stay employable in this league. But the subtext, the implications, the things he's saying without actually saying them, it paints a picture of a front office that is completely dysfunctional. And at the center of all of it is David Stearns. Let me start with this. Chavez has been in baseball for decades. He played at the highest level. He's been a coach at the highest level. He knows what successful organizations look like. He was part of the Yankees system. He's seen how winning cultures operate. And after spending time inside the Mets organization under David Stearns, he's now gone to Colorado, and the whispers coming out are that he saw things in New York that deeply concerned him. Things about how decisions were being made, things about how players were being treated, things about how communication was breaking down at the highest levels. Here's what we know for certain. The Mets just had one of the most catastrophic off seasons in recent memory. They lost Pete Alonso, their franchise player, without even making him a contract offer. They lost Edwin Díaz to the Dodgers after what appears to be a complete communication breakdown. They traded away Brandon Nimmo, a fan favorite and one of the few homegrown success stories this organization has had in years. And through all of this, David Stearns has been operating with this quiet, methodical approach that is driving fans absolutely insane. But here's what Eric Chavez is pointing out, and this is crucial. It's not just that the Mets are losing players. Every team loses players in free agency. That's part of baseball. What's concerning is how they're losing them. The lack of communication, the lack of urgency, the lack of basic relationship management that you would expect from any competent front office, let alone one that's supposed to be among the best in baseball. Take the Pete Alonso situation. This isn't just about money. Pete wanted to stay in New York. Multiple reports have confirmed that. His agent was waiting for an offer, any offer. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted to have a conversation. But Stearns never picked up the phone. He never engaged. He just sat back and watched as the market developed, apparently thinking he could swoop in at the last second with some low-ball offer that Pete would accept out of loyalty. That's not how this works. That's not how you treat a player who's hit over 200 home runs for your organization. And this is where Chavez's insights become so important, because he was there. He watched this happen in real time. He saw the decision-making process. And now that he's out, he's making it clear that there were serious questions being asked internally about whether Stearns understood what he was doing, whether he grasped the magnitude of the situation, whether he was prepared for the pressure and expectations that come with running the New York Mets. Remember, Stearns came from Milwaukee. He built his reputation in a small market where you have to be conservative, where you can't afford to make mistakes, where every dollar matters. That's a valuable skill set. But it's the complete opposite of what the Mets need. Steve Cohen didn't buy this team to operate like the Brewers. He bought it to win championships. He bought it to compete with the Yankees and Dodgers. He bought it to be aggressive and dominant and overwhelming. And instead, he's got a president of baseball operations who's acting like he's working with a shoestring budget. The Edwin Díaz situation is even more revealing, and this is where Chavez's comments really start to make sense when you dig into what actually happened. The Mets traded for Devin Williams, another elite closer, without properly communicating with Díaz about what the plan was. Now, you might think, why does that matter? Just tell him he's not the closer anymore and move on. But that shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how baseball clubhouses work. These are relationships built over years. Diaz had been through everything with the Mets, the injury, the comeback, the playoff run. You don't just surprise a guy like that with a trade that makes his role unclear. And what happened? Diaz felt disrespected. He felt like the organization didn't value him. So when the Dodgers came calling with an offer that was basically identical to what the Mets could have given him, he jumped at it. And on his way out, he made sure to talk about how the Dodgers are a winning organization, how they communicate better, how they treat their players with respect. That's not an accident. That's a player sending a very clear message about what he experienced in New York. Chavez saw all of this. He was in those clubhouse meetings. He talked to these players every single day. He understood the disconnect between what the front office was doing and how it was being received by the people who actually have to go out and play the games. And the fact that he's now comfortable letting some of these details slip out, even in a careful, diplomatic way, tells you everything you need to know about how bad things really were. Now let's talk about what this means going forward. Because the scary part isn't just what's already happened. It's what this pattern suggests about the future. If Stearns couldn't handle the pressure of his first real offseason with the Mets, if he couldn't manage basic communication with star players, if he couldn't take advantage of having an owner with unlimited resources, what makes anyone think he's suddenly going to figure it out moving forward? The front office apologists will tell you to be patient. They'll say Stearns has a plan. They'll say he's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. But that's what we heard about Brodie Van Wagenen too. That's what we heard about every failed general manager this organization has had over the last 2 decades. At some point, you have to judge people on results, and the results so far have been absolutely disastrous. Steve Cohen is not a patient man. He didn't become a billionaire by accepting mediocrity. He bought this team to win, and he's watching as president of baseball operations let key players walk out the door without even fighting for them. How long is that going to be acceptable? How many more off seasons can Stearns waste before Cohen decides he needs someone who actually understands how to operate in a big market with big expectations? And here's the thing that should terrify Mets fans. The window is closing. Francisco Lindor's getting older. Brandon Nimmo just got traded. The farm system isn't producing impact players fast enough. The division is getting tougher with the Braves and Phillies both staying competitive. Every year that Stearns wastes with this conservative, small market approach is a year that the Mets fall further behind. And once that window closes, it's incredibly difficult to open it back up. Eric Chavez didn't leave the Mets because things were going great. He left because he saw the writing on the wall. He recognized that this organization, under this leadership, wasn't positioned to succeed. And now he's in Colorado, where at least the expectations are realistic, and he doesn't have to watch a front office squander unlimited resources because they're too afraid to actually use them. So here's my question for you, and I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments. How much longer does David Stearns get? How many more disasters does he get to oversee before Steve Cohen pulls the plug? Because I'm telling you right now, if this season goes south, if the Mets struggle out of the gate because Stearns didn't adequately replace the talent that walked out the door, Cohen is not going to sit around and wait for some 5-year rebuilding plan to play out. He's going to make a change, and maybe that's exactly what this organization needs. If you're as frustrated as I am, smash that like button. Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. Tell me if you think Stearns deserves more time or if it's already time to move on. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're going to be covering every single development with this team, and trust me, there's a lot more to come. I'll catch you in the next one.